I had to take a little break and actually offload a little bit of this footage onto my computer because it's turning once again into like a pet palette ranking situation where neither my SD card nor my laptop can really handle that much footage. But we were in the year 2020 and I wanted to throw in, I don't have that palette, which is why I'm not showing it, but in 2020 she actually started releasing a new format of palette, which is her Mega Mothership. So quickly going to show the one from 2021 here. We're going to talk about it in a bit, but this is a completely different like format. It's like a really big palette which basically doesn't again contain any of like the baked formulas, but it contains a bunch of her mattes and metallics. So the palette for 2020 was called the Celestial Divinity, and I do not have that palette because what happened with that palette is that basically she reintroduced the eyeshadows that were present in the two Star Wars 6 pans that I talked about before, so the C-3PO and the Dark Stormtrooper one, and she put 6 extra eyeshadows. So these contain a total of 18 eyeshadows. So she brought back those two 6 pans and then she put a new one in there. I figured that's important to mention because to a lot of people the actual Star Wars packaging was completely irrelevant and they were just lasting after the eyeshadows. So the Celestial Divinity, once again, it's a holiday palette from like 3 years ago, so obviously by now it's been discontinued, but I regularly see it on Vinted. I'm sure you can find it secondhand if you were really lasting after it. So for Valentine's Day 2021, Pat released a little quad which once again didn't really have any Blitz or Astro shades. It was one of her Lux quads, and together with that she did release something that came from the oven. She released a highlighter, this beautiful highlighter in the shade Divine Rose, which is essentially like a VR type of texture, but then in a highlighter. So it's a little bit like a more lightweight texture of a VR eyeshadow. So this was her Valentine's Day release for 2021. Obviously quite rosy. So at this point we were already starting to feel like, you know, the Divine Rose theme is getting a little bit beaten to death. But obviously, for Valentine's Day, what is she going to release? Greens? Spring greens or something? Obviously not. I think this is beautiful for a Valentine's Day release, and I, for one, actually really enjoy this quad. I really like all the eyeshadows in here. But with that said, again, another pinky leaning eyeshadow palette. 2021 marks a very important year because Mother finally gave us blush. So in the spring of 2021 she released the Divine Blush collection with 9 shades of her Divine blushes that come in a pressed formula. Here I'm just showing you my favorite one. This is the shade Desert Orchid, but these are some of the best blushes in my collection. They're a beautiful formula, they last super long on the skin, they're beautiful tones, and I just absolutely love them. And together with that collection she also introduced sort of like a new format of quad, or like not a new format of quad, but the type of quad we hadn't really seen before. So this is sort of like one of her Lux quads, but what is different about it is this eyeshadow over here. So this is this shade of quad is called Voyeuristic Vixen, and this specific eyeshadow here is called it's not VR, it's called Rosefire Nectar. But what makes this eyeshadow so special is that it's not one of her Blitz or Astros, and it is actually more similar to what she's been releasing as Mothership X and 11, but it's that like very flaky, very glittery, but not baked type of formula. Now, I personally adore Voyeuristic Vixen. I really love it, and Rosefire Nectar happens to be one of my most favorite eyeshadows to like put over top of everything else. So I do use this quad a lot, and I really, really love it. Do I wish that this was in one of her actual like astral baked formulas? A little bit, but I was still not mad about this formula. I was just happy to see that she's doing once again something different. You know, once again she surprises us with something different. Summer of 2021 rolls around, and obviously everyone is once again high on emotion, and the expectations are high, and they're especially starting to build up now because we've seen a lot of pinky rosy themes and like Divine Rose, you know, rosy type of packaging. And we are all wondering, what is the Mothership 9 going to look like? Is it finally going to be a departure from the rosy theme? Now, when she starts teasing the images of the outer packaging, first of all, the outer packaging is like somewhat of a new design for her, but as soon as people saw the outer packaging, everyone was like, ooh, that looks a little bit pink. At the same time, she was sort of teasing that she's releasing something in like a rainbow color theme, which was a bit confusing. I thought a lot of people were expecting Pat McGrath to do a rainbow palette, which honestly I didn't really expect, and to me this is like a little bit of a rainbow palette, but in disguise, like a not literal translation of the rainbow. But anyway, I recall when this palette, like the video announcement of this palette, with when they like show the reveal, they open it. I was in the cinema with my friend. We were watching In the Heights, and then I started getting like all of these messages on my phone, and I was like, Pat McGrath probably announced the Mothership 9, but like we were sitting in the middle of the movie. Obviously I wasn't going to like start looking at my phone, so I barely could wait for the the little like pause that they have, because yes, at Dutch cinemas always have a little break in the middle of the movie, which in this case was very welcome because I barely could keep my curiosity at bay. So then I looked at the reveal, and at first I was a little confused. I was like, wait, is that a new palette or is that Divine Rose 2? I'm a little bit confused. And then obviously as I started looking at the colors a little bit more like in detail, I was like, wait, this is not Divine Rose 2. I mean, it is a little bit rosy, but it is definitely not Divine Rose 2. And at this point, I was still at the phase where I thought, I don't care what the color story is, as long as, you know, I get it in my hands and I get to try these like beautiful like Blitz and Astro shades here. And then I got the palette. I really like Utopian Dream. So this is Utopian Dream Mothership 9. I thought this was a beautiful, vibrant summer release. I didn't consider it too much of like a pink-based palette. To me, this has much more like coral undertones with a little bit of this like pop of like purpley here. And it features another multichrome. People on the internet were very sharp though to immediately notice that for the first time ever, the corner of the 4 like special shades has been infested by a texture that is not baked. First and foremost, I don't know whether you will see like these textures here, the baked eyeshadows, they appear to be a little bit more domed. They obviously appear to have a somewhat different texture. And the second most important telltale sign is they are not in a metal pan, they're baked inside of the actual palette. And with this shade, you can clearly see the outlines of a metal pan. So this signified something very sneaky that I really didn't like, which is calling this shade VR. Oh no, wait, this is called Blitz Extreme. So she calls it a Blitz. It's positioned in the same place where you would usually have all the baked shades, but it is not baked. And I was a little bit uncomfortable with that. I felt a little bit like, oh, I don't like where this is going. I don't like that she's naming things that are not baked, Blitz, Astral and VR. That's one, confusing, and second of all, sneaky. Because, and I will reiterate this like 50 more times if necessary, these shades here are what makes hers like eyeshadow palettes so interesting, so versatile and so transformative. Like if you just have these, 10 of these eyeshadows here, frankly, even if they are like the absolute highest quality you can imagine, I don't think that they are that interesting. They're not going to make really interesting looks. These 4 here and the transparency, the way you can use them to either build them up to be very opaque or sheer them out to be just like a transformative glimmer of sparkle on your eyelids, that is exactly what I'm looking for with her Mothership palettes. That is why they're so special to me. Something that I think was a little bit cranked up in this specific palette, the 2 Astros here had a particularly like large, flaky, glittery texture to them. Like I personally don't really mind. I can work with those textures quite easily, but I think a lot of people were quite troubled by how extremely glittery and flaky these eyeshadows were. And then of course, once again, the holiday season is coming and everyone is excited. With the phasing out of baked shades even in her Mothership palettes, I was already getting a little bit worried that maybe we're once again not going to get Blitz Astral Quads for the holidays. And lo and behold, that is exactly what happened. What we did get was another one of these like mega Mothership palettes, and this time I bought the actual palette. This is the Celestial Odyssey palette. To date, one of my favorite ever releases from her, because I think there are so many absolutely fabulous eyeshadows in here. Just an absolute gem of a palette. I really, really like Celestial Odyssey, and the quality of these eyeshadows is just sublime. Now, together with this, she also released a highlighter that also is in that like slightly VR-y type texture formula. So she released this highlighter. This is the shade Lunar something. Lunar Nude, which once again is in that beautiful baked formula. I love this highlighter. It is one of my favorites to use in the winter time when I do more cool tone looks. And together with this, she released another one of those look squads. Now, I bought the two Lux quads. I reviewed them and I gave them an absolutely like abysmal review. I hated on them so much and I disliked both of them so much that I decluttered them pretty much before the end of the year. So one of them I gave to my mom-in-law and the other one I sold. I can like find and put pictures somewhere here for you to see the two quads that I'm talking about. The tones of a lot of the eyeshadows that were in there and the like flaky metallic eyeshadows, there was something about the formula that I was not jiving with. They were not working out for me. There was a duochrome in one of the quads that was like this like blue-brown flip that I absolutely hated on myself, and like these maroon tones. It was just a lot of hate for these two quads. Personal taste, I know a lot of other people probably really like this, but you know, I didn't like them and I got rid of them. But what happened with these two quads is that for the first time we also saw a downgrade in her black lacquer packaging, because I just wanted to show you as an example. The last time before that we had gotten a quad was the spring of 2021 when we got Voyeuristic Vixen. Now, Voyeuristic Vixen still has the beautiful like gold plate engraving here on the luxurious black lacquer, whereas the new quads had just Pat McGrath written in gold across the black lacquer. Additionally, what happened with the pans were that they were smaller. So the and I don't want you to be confused that the smaller pans signifies that there was less eyeshadow. I don't think that was the case. I think the amount of eyeshadow was about the same. But I personally think that these smaller pans, and unfortunately they have persisted since then, they just look uglier. Look at how much uglier this looks compared to this. I don't understand what the problem is in making these like bigger, shallower pans which just fit better with the background, like the size of the background, because this just looks like visually displeasing to me. This looks like someone half-assed their job, you know? And I feel like if it's a luxury brand, every single detail needs to be thought out and every single like visual aspect of the packaging needs to be pleasing, because you're not just paying for the quality of the product, you're also paying for the packaging. And this downgrade in packaging was another really bad sign. And before I forget it, in the end of 2021, right around Christmas time, Pat McGrath also announced that she's going to collaborate with Bridgerton. So a whole collection was released surrounding the collaboration. I don't have any of the items besides the 6-pan. So this is the first Bridgerton palette. This is what is this called again? Something Diamond of the First Water. Judging by the color story of this 6-pan, honestly it was not very exciting, but I found this release very, very intriguing and very, very exciting, because this is the first time ever that we see a baked texture in her 6-pans. So far everything that was a 6-pan always was made in the US. That's maybe something important to mention, that some of her products are made in the US and some of her products are made in Italy. Like Motherships, the Blitz Astral Quads, everything that is baked is made in Italy, whereas everything that is just mattes and metallics often comes from the US labs. That's not to say the US labs are bad. I know some people have certain feelings about the products that come from the US, like the trio of the Lux quads from 2020 came from the US, and I think those are exceptional. My 3 palettes from the Holiday Collection 2018 are also from the US, and I also think they are absolutely stunning. So I have no complaints about which lab they're coming from, but what's specific to the lab in Italy is that they have the baked formula. So this was made in Italy. This was her first 6-pan ever made in Italy, and it featured 4 eyeshadows. 4? No, I'm lying. 3 eyeshadows actually in the baked formula, because this here is an actual classic astral shade, and these 2 eyeshadows are sort of like this like baked satin formula. Very, very interesting. I wasn't like super excited by the color story, even though there are some really pretty shades in here, and obviously this astral is really, really pretty. But what I found so interesting is that finally we're seeing an astral formula into the 6-pans. And I'm just realizing that I actually never talked about the lipstick or like any of the lip products. Apologies for that. I don't think I can track those back well enough, because I just never have really... It's not that I haven't cared so much for them. I actually really like her lipstick formula. I like the matte trans. I loved the Lux trans. I like the new Satin Allure formula. I love the Divinyls. Her lip glosses are really, really good. Honestly, I just like them, but I don't know that they've never been like an exciting release on their own. Every now and then she will have like a little kit with a lipstick, but I've never really considered those to be like really, really interesting. Anyway, so the second Bridgerton collection came, and once again we are getting a 6-pan with 2 baked astrals in it. Once again, really, really unique. So this shade and this shade are in her classic baked formula. This shade here is once again that beautiful like baked satin type formula, and I actually really liked this second Bridgerton palette. Together with the Bridgerton 6-pan we also got this like little wheel of, once again, a very new formula to her, like a very interesting baked formula of the blushes. It comes in this packaging, which I think was meant to be like part of the aesthetic of the TV show, not necessarily the aesthetic of everyone out there. Personally, I don't mind at all. I keep it on my vanity and I like looking at it and I like using it, and I think these formulas are really great. Something is horribly wrong with my highlighter because unfortunately almost nothing is coming off of it, but the 3 blushes are beautiful. And then again, it is summer of 2022, an exciting time of the year, and not only is it time for a new Mothership, it is time for Mothership number 10. And I feel like that kind of like increased the expectations. At least I was expecting something with fanfare, something like totally in Mother style, like something super glitzy, sparkly, avant-garde, like something to blow all the other 9 out of the water. And then we got Mothership X, Mothership X, Molded Seduction. Now, I don't want to say that this is a bad palette, because it is not. It is a beautiful palette. However, it does have some flaws. And once again, it contains some warning signs that not good things are happening with the direction that the brand is taking, and especially the departure from the baked astral shades, like the baked Blitz VR and astral shades, because this is the first Mothership ever that contained 0 of those baked textures. They're called Blitz VR and whatever, but they are not. They are not baked. They're just like pressed glitters. And while they're a beautiful, high quality formula, and you can still get a lot of that like versatility and transformative power that the original baked formula had, I will never consider these to be at the same quality level as the baked formulas. There are some people for whom these are not going to work out because they're going to look flaky, they're going to look textured, they're going to gunk up. That's just the name of the game when you have a texture like this. So while these are beautiful eyeshadows, do not get me wrong, and actually quite like this color story with the exception of this plummy shade, again like maroony plummy shade. Like these kind of shades personally for my skin tone, they make me look really sickly. I hate them. So this shade I think I've used once when I demoed the palette, and that was it. But I really like all the other 9 shades in here. But I will certainly say this, while I really enjoy this palette and there are eyeshadows in here that I really like, this was the first time that I felt slightly like disappointed in a Mothership palette, because it didn't really feel like a Mothership anymore. Like without the baked astral shades, is it really a Mothership anymore? But you know, I thought, you know, it's the year 2022, we've been sitting in a pandemic, there are worldwide, you know, supply chain issues. Am I really going to like whine that there is a Mothership without the baked astral shades? Maybe next year she's going to solve the problem and they're going to be back and everything will be fine with the world again. Well, we all know how that ends. But anyway, we're not quite there yet. So it is now holiday season of 2022, and once again we are seeing another Mega Mothership make an appearance. And not only does a Mega Mothership make an appearance, but we finally know for certain that Mother knows what we want, or at least what the peoples want. For a very long time, especially after the disappointment of Utopian Dream, people kept asking Pat McGrath to make colorful eyeshadows, like especially colorful matte eyeshadows. And I think it's actually very clever what they decided to do, because they decided to give the colorful matte eyeshadows that probably aren't going to sell really well. Case on point, this palette's been on sale for a really long time. And make them in the format of a limited edition holiday release. So there you have it. All the eyeshadows that people who expected colorful eyeshadows wanted are in here. There's a green, there's a blue, there's a purple, there's an orange. Voila! By me, I could take it or leave it. I didn't really care so much if Pat gives me colorful eyeshadows, because I just don't really care so much for getting colorful eyeshadows from her. That's not why I go to her brand. I do not go to her brand to get colorful matte eyeshadows. I can find colorful matte eyeshadows around every corner of every indie brand. But what I personally disliked about the Celestial Nirvana, so this is the Holiday Mega Motherships in Celestial Nirvana, I disliked the metallic formula in here. Compared to the release from the previous year, so the Celestial Odyssey palette, these metallic eyeshadows fell flat for me. They were so uninteresting. There was just nothing going on to them. There was not a single sparkle, not a single duochromatic eyeshadow, nothing to elevate these eyeshadows. They just felt so much plainer and they felt different. And this is where I want to mention that if you compare the metallic eyeshadow formula that is present in here to her Decadence palette, or even to those older 6 pans, that holiday collection for 2018, when you compare this to those, there's like a world of difference. These are subpar compared to those. So I like the idea of having the colorful mattes from Pat in the Celestial Nirvana palette, and there are individual shades in here that I quite enjoy. I'm quite fond of actually this specific pink over here because I think it's a really flattering tone of pink on me. I like this green, I like this corner here of the cooler neutral shades. But what I found more exciting about this holiday release actually was the reveal of a product type that once again was completely new to the Pat McGrath range, something we had never seen before. So in holiday 2022 she introduced us to these little quins. So these little quins are a very small, elegant, compact format of a eyeshadow palette that has really small pans, but also what these quins brought us is a new formula. There is a new formula of like the metallic eyeshadows in here, and in fact now that someone has pointed out that these eyeshadows do not actually have a metallic pan to them, I consider all of them to be a somewhat new formula to the Pat McGrath Labs range. The queen that eventually made me fall in love with this little format of eyeshadow palettes was Bronze Bliss. So much so that I have recently purchased myself a backup of this eyeshadow palette because I never want to be without it. This specific color story speaks to me on so many levels. I love the eyeshadows in here, they're an exceptional formula, and these little queens are just, they make me feel joy, and they make me feel like Pat McGrath gave us once again something new and something exciting. The collection once again featured one of her baked highlighters. This one is in the shade Venusian Nude, and it is actually by far one of my favorite highlighters from Pat McGrath. To me, the holiday collection from 2022 was not so much about the Celestial Nirvana Mega Mothership, it was more about these queens. Wow, that is a lot of sunlight getting in here. Now, at the very end of 2022, just like out of the blue, all of a sudden, Pat McGrath announced that they're going to have a second collaboration with Star Wars. Out of the blue and not really based on anything that was going on with Star Wars at the time being, but they revealed and dropped a second collaboration with Star Wars. And like I said, during that collaboration, they made a desperate attempt to salvage or to, you know, give a second life to the Midnight Sun palette, the Mothership XI. Unfortunately, that kind of backfired, and I just feel like outside of the range of people who understand her palettes, who are huge fans of her brand, so think of people like me who are on YouTube, of Alicia Archer, a bunch of other people who make YouTube videos about Pat McGrath Labs. Outside of that like small circle of people, I think Midnight Sun remains very much misunderstood. Anyway, what I found more interesting is, because of course I have the Midnight Sun palette, I wasn't going to purchase another Midnight Sun palette, be it in the beautiful Star Wars packaging. I was much more intrigued by the fact that another 3 of these little queens were being introduced. Now, unfortunately, I am a dummy and I didn't purchase all 3 of them, and I'm beating myself up for it now. There were 3 of them, one with C-3PO, one with, I think it's called the golden one with R2-D2, and one with Darth Vader. So this is Sith Seduction. It is really beautiful, somewhat like deeper tones, very reminiscent actually of the tones that are found in the Midnight Sun palette, and these 2 beautiful neutrals. I actually quite like the 2 neutrals that are in here. And the Divine Droid one is also really pretty. It contains these array of colorful eyeshadows. I'm particularly fond of these three over here, and especially this like bronzy brown and this lime green have my heart. I love these little queens. I hope that if she's not going to give us more Blitz Astral quads, at the very least make more of these queens because they're gorgeous. And if you're still here and you've made it to the year of 2023 together with me, then you are an absolute rock star. So 2023, we see the release of yet another like very exciting like new product type to the Pat McGrath lineup, and those are bronzers. We have been asking her to make bronzers for quite a few years now, and she finally gave us the Divine bronzers, which basically come in like similar packaging, similar formula, similar performance. I really like them. I have 3 of them and I use them all the time. We also got cream blushes, another product that we have been begging her to give us. They come in this cute pink packaging, quite cheap and plasticky, but the actual formula, the colors, I'm quite fond of these cream blushes, I'm not gonna lie. I'm really happy that I have the 2 colors that I have. I've been contemplating getting another one. So overall, I feel like these have all been like very much asked for and well-received releases from the brand. And by the way, just in case anyone forgot, together with the cream blush release there was a new quad. This is the quad in Passion Fluor, which unfortunately features the same sort of like one-dimensional formula of metallic eyeshadows that are also present in the Celestial Nirvana palette. So I don't really know what's going on even with her metallic eyeshadows. I feel like even the metallic eyeshadows are dropping in quality. So that's quite unfortunate. I don't mind this quad because I really like these 2 eyeshadows here, specifically these 2 like colors. I think they're very, very pretty. But I can't say that I'm super fond of the direction that she's taking even with the quads in terms of the quality of the eyeshadows. I feel like between the year when Celestial Odyssey and the Voyeuristic Vixen quads were released and now, there's a significant shift in the quality of the products. And maybe something that I should have made clear before, the Divine Rose 1 release and the Divine Rose 2 release really put Pat McGrath Labs, the brand, in a completely different, you know, place, I feel like, as they were before that. Before that, they were still a little bit niche, they were still a little bit more well-known amongst people who are familiar with Pat McGrath as a makeup artist. But after that point, and you know, getting a little bit more traction at Sephora, and I didn't mention, but she has released a foundation and concealer and powder. You know, she's added quite a few like core line products to her makeup, mascaras, lip liners, eyeliners, that kind of thing. People just became more and more familiar with her brand, and with that, I have this like sneaking feeling that since the beginning of the brand, when they were operating on like a smaller scale and were a little bit more niche, and now not much has changed in terms of their like logistics or something. So when you're catering to like, I don't know, 1,000 consumers, and all of a sudden you have 100,000 consumers, you're operating in a different scale. You need to like amp up your whole operation, which I feel like she hasn't done. She still does not have a distribution center in Europe. She still gets so much complaints about her customer service. Her customer service is one of the most abysmal customer services for a luxury brand, if I've ever seen one. So unfortunately, some things have not caught up quite much with the exploding, you know, popularity of the brand. And of course, past the release of these 2 products, which was very recent, it was in June of this year, the Mothership XI was going to come. And trust me, there was a lot of anticipation, there was a lot of like deep-seated fear, and I have to say, personally, from my perspective, all of my fears were justified. Oh, I was about to grab Sunlit Seduction to show it to you, and then I realized, dummy, you don't have Sunlit Seduction. So yes, we all know what happened a couple of weeks ago. The Mothership XI has by now been released. It is called Sunlit Seduction, sort of like the counterpart of Moonlit Seduction. I don't know what really is sunlit about it because it is very, very pink. From where I'm standing, it is very pink. So Several things have unfortunately happened between even Mothership X and Mothership XI, but something that has persisted to my disappointment, and I think to a lot of your disappointment, is that the bake shades are now gone. There is not a single, once again, bake shade in her Mothership XI palette, and there seems to be this new type of formula in there, which is not even of a topper quality. It's more of like an actual flaky, glittery duochrome shade. I don't want you to get me wrong. I still think this is a beautiful palette. I still think for a lot of, you know, people out there, this is going to be their perfect everyday palette, the one that they can use all the time, the one that if they've spent $125 on, they can justify it because it is a palette that they're going to use on the daily. An eyeshadow palette like Midnight Sun is probably not something that they're going to unfortunately use on the daily or know how to approach on the daily. And unfortunately, Mothership XI not only is missing those baked shades, but from what I understand, the black lacquer packaging, the expensive luxurious black lacquer packaging, has undergone a downgrade as well, just like the little quads, which no longer have like her gold logo in like the gold plating. The actual Mothership XI, like if you look at all of the previous Motherships, on the back of the palette they have this like gold plating, and then the Pat McGrath Labs logo is engraved here. From what I understand, the new Mothership doesn't have the gold plating, it doesn't have anything engraved, it just has like a gold sticker on it, on the back. From what I understand, it's just a gold sticker. So that's also something, you know, to keep in mind. This is pretty much where we are at the moment. It is the summer of 2023. I do not have Mothership XI. I still have not completely made up my mind whether or not I'm going to purchase it at some point. For now, I'm leaning towards a no. Where do we go from here? I don't know. Maybe a little detail that I should add just from like a business perspective is that in 2018 investors came into the picture. The brand was estimated to have a value of $1 billion, and from what I understand they invested 60 million in it. And I can sort of like put the timelines together and it really makes sense, you know. The end of 2019 is when we saw the release of the Divine Rose 1 palette. After that we've just been seeing like the Divine Rose, you know, remix palettes coming each and every year. We've been seeing a shift from that expensive baked formula towards a more generic, flaky, glittery type formula. We've been seeing a constant downgrade in the packaging, not only in the actual like black lacquer, but also like in the boxes. Like the boxes of the quads have become somewhat more minimalistic over time. But I'm not making this video in any way, shape or form to comment on where the brand is going or whether I understand anything about their business strategies, because I can assure you I do not. I do not know the absolute first thing about business strategy. So I'm going to leave it at like reminiscing and taking a trip down memory lane into the, you know, releases of the brand and how they've made me feel. And yes, I will have to admit that as of now, I'm a little bit disappointed in the direction that they're taking. I am, you know, anxiously awaiting for the holiday release to see whether maybe we're going to get like a small batch of Blitz Astral quads, because some of us have been asking for that, and she seems to release the things that we want in like limited quantities during a holiday release. We shall see. I don't know. Anyway, this has been a very, very long video. I'm going to make myself a little iced coffee now and get started on editing, because it's going to take me forever to edit, and I literally have like only like 1 day left to edit, because after that I'm in holiday mode and I don't want to do anything that requires any sort of like brain power. So hopefully you will be able to see this video before I go on holiday. I'm very, very curious what you thought about it. I'm sure that I have missed things. I'm sure some of you will correct me about things that I have missed or maybe misplaced in terms of the timeline. Let me know if you have any thoughts about your personal journey with Pat McGrath Labs. When did that start? I know for some of you, the journey with Pat McGrath Labs started before the labs began. It started with admiring Pat's work, you know, as an makeup artist on the runway. That's all to say. I can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you after my holidays with hopefully a little bit more tan. Bye!